I'm Charles Johnson, President of the Southern Regional Council. The Southern Regional Council has been a think tank for progressive issues in the South for 90 years, and for much of those 90 years we have addressed a paradigm of a South made up of two principal communities. One relatively advantaged white community and one relatively disadvantaged black community. The South is changing. These days, if you look around the South for those communities that are disadvantaged and dispossessed, most often they're still communities of color, but they're not all black. But what's happened has been that the new communities that have come in as a result of migration from other parts of the country or other parts of the world have come in and they've looked at the existing African American communities. The African American communities have looked at them, and they've seen competitors competing in a zero-sum game for scarce resources. And quite often when that has happened, neither community has benefited very much. But some folks have figured out that there is as much to be gained from collaboration as there is to be gained from competition. That a lot of the problems that each community faces are common to the other community. And so we have looked for situations in which African American and Latino communities have figured out a way to bridge that divide, to come together around issues of common concern, address them together. And we found some. We found them in Greensboro, North Carolina. We found them in Miami, Florida. We found them in Cobb County, Georgia. We found them in Atkinson County, Georgia. People who have come together around and across boundaries of race and nationality, figured out a way to find common ground and work together to address those issues that they face together. We've looked to find out what it is about the way they came together that enabled them to succeed. And we found some factors that are common to these communities and to these collaborations that we want to share with you.
Each focus group we encountered emphasized the need to establish trust, especially when language, culture, and history serve as barriers. Coalition members have to quell fears, disprove popular stereotypes, and place people in situations where they can feel comfortable. Some of the focus group members have used church and faith as a vehicle to establish trust. Others have organized social events with food, music, and dance. Trust develops over time when people are treated with respect and dignity, and the actions of others are genuine and sincere. The coalitions we studied were formed as a reaction to a particular social phenomenon occurring within their communities. Whether it is racial profiling, anti-immigrant legislation, exploitation of workers, or housing concerns, opportunities for dialogue allowed for the most salient issues to be identified and addressed. Whatever the reason for coalescing, it has to be prioritized and respected. During the first phase of relationship building, the initial cause or causes will serve as the motivating factor for African Americans and Latinos to work together. Language is a common problem in Black-Brown coalitions since communication is central to every facet of coalition building. Bilingual members are a vital asset to any Black-Brown coalition. People want to be heard in the language they speak most comfortably. Fortunately, within most of the coalitions we studied, there were always some individuals who could provide translation services. Coalitions can seek translation assistance from local colleges, universities, or service agencies, or perhaps they can establish their own programs to teach English or Spanish. The key is enabling coalition members to speak freely and confidently. This can be accomplished by translators who care about the cause and the statements shared within the coalition. The location is a symbol of solidarity. Coalitions need to identify a place that is easily recognizable, accessible, and safe. Entering into coalitions is a political act. Parents, children, undocumented immigrants, workers, educators, and other concerned residents all fear loss if their actions are uncovered. Churches seem to be the location of choice for most coalitions. Others had established offices where they could meet, strategize, and conduct their business. Although the initial issues is what brings communities together, it is the search for context that sustains the coalition. Community leaders must offer opportunities to understand the struggles, fears, and aspirations of both African Americans and Latinos. Context provides perspective that goes beyond the superficial stereotypes that exist on the surface. Latinos need to understand the history of African Americans in the United States, especially the modern civil rights movement. Equally true, African Americans have to appreciate why Latinos Latinos migrated to the Southeast. This process also establishes a sense of humanity and kinship. Coalition members evolve from being seen as stereotypical African Americans or Latinos to becoming individuals who are unique. Leadership is another essential element to effective coalition building. Leaders cannot be self-proclaimed, but identified by the community as persons who are trustworthy and capable of addressing the interests of all coalition members. 2 groups we studied had faith leaders serving in some leadership capacity. 2 others had grassroots organizers or labor leaders. What coalitions want from their leaders is respect, an understanding of the issues, the capacity to mobilize communities, the ability to think strategically, and the audacity to speak truth to power. Once a coalition is formed and the leadership is established, there must be a sense of direction and purpose. The agenda is the destination and roadmap towards group success. It contains those issues that resonate most deeply among African Americans and Latinos, and it outlines what should be done and by whom. Therefore, the agenda is also a tool for sustaining enthusiasm and empowering residents to act. It is a document created through a democratic process that represents the sacrifice and labor any coalition demands. Coalitions exist to change a social phenomenon that is negatively impacting the lives of a certain population. At times, a change in leadership or policy might suffice. At other times, systemic change might be the only viable recourse available. Allowing the agenda to be achievable is another sustaining mechanism. Change is incremental and purposeful. Coalition leaders should develop a plan whereby members can consistently enjoy victory from their efforts. As well, leaders should recognize the limitations in time, resources, and talent within each community. Trying to accomplish more than is feasible will undermine any momentum attained and lead to group apathy. Remember, success is in the eye of the beholder. The reason for uniting usually stems from negative circumstances. People are angry, frustrated, fearful, and wanting to act. In the midst of building a coalition, there should be time for enjoying the company of others who were once strangers, but are now allies. The focus group participants always found time to organize potlucks, cultural events, or community projects that allowed men, women, and children to bond. Coalitions work well when members enjoy each other's company and appreciate what everyone brings to the table.
So if you're working with a community group, whether it's an African American community group or a Latino community group or another community group that seems to be hemmed in by a barrier of race or nationality, and you're looking for a way to bridge that barrier, to cross that barrier and forge coalitions with other communities that may have similar problems, but you haven't figured out a way to do it, we hope you'll consider those success factors that we've identified. Try to employ those and see if they're helpful in making success in your coalition efforts. If you have any questions, please contact us at southerncouncil.org.